Jordan's in a bit of a mood right
I'm
now.
losing my mind. And now we talk about Chippendale. This movie is a roller coaster.
But I liked its story.
It goes back and forth. There is no middle ground. It is just wah, 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 wah.
There's a really good movie somewhere in here. Am I supposed to laugh? Who knows with this movie? I couldn't tell you.
Hi everybody, welcome to Narratives and Nonsense. I didn't even count down. We're talking Chippendale today. We're friends talking about random and recent stories, newsworthy
Jordan's
and
in a bit of a mood right now.
I am in a tizzy. I can't.
We have triggered the nerd rage.
Oh God! It all started with one of the holidays. Anyway, we're in for a good time today. Let's start with our last week. Connor, how was your week?
My weeks were pretty good. I finally got through a really big project at work, so I'm done doing horrible manual labor for at least a little while.
Woo!
So that's nice, but there won't be too much longer than that anyways. So that was really great. On the interim, when we weren't recording last weekend, went down and saw one of my buddies from college, played a bunch of Commander. We played probably like 16 games of Commander in 2 days, which is ridiculous because it's like 4 people, 5 minutes a turn. It's about 20 minutes for a round, so it's a lot of games.
So just a full day event then, yeah.
2 days.
2-day event. Oh my god.
And Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and then we ended about 4 or 5-ish. So we played a lot,
God.
But it was really good. It was nice to really get the decks through, do some fun stuff, and so yeah. But that's pretty much big stuff for me.
Nice. Man. How's the weather up there as well?
More expensive. It's been good. It was like really hot. We were trying to install weather strip and it was like 22 degrees outside, which isn't the hottest in the world, but I'm on a job site, so I have to wear long sleeve shirts and I have like black like overalls that I wear all the time, so I was dying.
It's starting to get sweat worthy. Yeah.
And no, you can't like do your sleeve up. They will yell at you and write you up for that.
Yeah.
Before anybody says that.
Because it's a safety concern type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's funny though, because it's like then your shirt gets caught in everything and it's like, well now this is great.
Well, this is just inconvenient at this point.
Yeah, it's much like safety's great.
But yeah. Oh gosh, the last weekend /2, given the absence from our pre-recorded D&D adventure. Goodness. I think the biggest thing is while you were doing like 3 days of play, I ended up going down to New Mexico. I'm part of a group called Silhouettes. If you haven't seen them, we're on AGT, America's Got Talent season 6. We ended up getting runners up there. So we have a light, we have a screen, we have a light. Nice. And then that's for all you visual people. And basically we dance behind the screen in front of the light to use our shadows to make words and shapes and all that jazz.
Mess with scale, get closer for
yeah. Very creative, very involved process, and lots of dance. I, as one of the older folks, one of the alums of this this whole endeavor, do not do nearly as much dancing as I used to, which is, I'm all about that. Like I'm there for being one of the older males that can play like a dad role, and that's all I'm needed for. So
he's got a lot of experience on the trips. He's a good babysitter too. It kind of helps.
Yeah. I do a little bit of
get a solid guy in your corner.
Yeah, just not quite a legit security, but all right, let me make sure that we have everybody on the bus that we need to. I know how these trips work. I can tell everyone, okay, this is how this goes down. Help with like tech, that kind of thing. So a lot of experience joining. The New Mexico show went well. It was a 90-minute show. It's our love show, so it's like a bunch of smaller vignettes with interim like setups between each. Very well done. Really, the only drama was on the way back. We had a little one who spilled a bag of chips that got yelled at by some of the older dancers, like, hey, you need to like clean up your mess. And then she didn't listen, so the older dancers went to like one of the older dancers, and the older dancer like handed a broom and went, hey, clean up your mess. and she, she does it, but then she was a little sad that she got yelled at. So she, if that's the drama, is, hey, you need to be held accountable for what you need to do. This is how we operate. You clean up your own mess. That's nothing. We've had far worse drama. I think one of the more insane things was, while we were in Wisconsin, our screen didn't show up, so we had to sew together a screen that night, and then also we had somebody fly out next day morning. I went to go and pick him up from the airport, drove straight to the theater early that morning so that we could try to get that backup screen. It was, oh boy, oh boy, yeah, quite an endeavor. So, bag of chips spilled on a bus, nothing. Outside of that, goodness, what Memorial Day happened, and I got to say hello to my grandparents that I don't see them quite as often. They live down, ironically, on the way to New Mexico, because we're busing it. You pass through Pagosa Springs. They're like 30 minutes from Pagosa, but they came up here because they, for Memorial Day, were celebrating with family for my cousins are now graduating 8th grade, going into high school. So we literally passed each other on like the same day. Just like, all right, bye. As I go down into Mexico and they come up to the Front Range in Colorado. So that was entertaining. And then, goodness, what else? I mean, the freaking weather down here has been so hot. This next week, we're looking at 80s and 90s basically the entire week as far as the highs go. And then, like, last week we had a little bit of cloud cover and drizzle, but like it's still hot as hell. Like that's where we're at. It's toasty down here. So woohoo, summer.
Thank God.
Right? It's okay.
As a person with no pollen allergies, it's great. Sucks to suck, you inferior human being.
Fever isn't fever, it's death.
Ever heard of evolution?
So, going from there, we have a whole bunch of news. We cycled through all sorts of stuff. We try to cap things at there's only 6 stories, so we managed to trim the fat, as it were, and some of them are fun. The first thing is,
because we could bring 5.
We could
like to do that a little bit extra.
Yes, yeah, we go that extra mile at 6. So the first thing, in maintaining tradition for our wonderful channel, and by tradition I mean we've done it twice now, which is weird because it happened more than once. We want to talk about old people jumping out of airplanes.
Seems to be, apparently this is going to be a recurring bit.
This needs to be a recurring bit. We need to have it happen a third time, and now it's cemented as tradition. But apparently there was a 103-year-old woman named Rut Larson, a Swedish woman who set a new Guinness World Record for parachuting out of a plane. As is the case with these world records, it's one of those assisted jumps, so it's her and somebody else in tandem. And Connor, I want you to guess, what was the world record before this? We talked about the person who turned 100, and for their centennial birthday, they went and jumped out the plane. What do you think the record was prior to this 103-year-old?
I would assume the 100-year-old.
Turns out the last record was 103 years and 181 days. The new record is now 103 years and 259 days. So just a couple months shy of 104, and literally about 2.5 months past what the previous record holder had as far as age. So congratulations to Rut Larson. you brave soul. I think one of my favorite parts of that news bit was she was going to celebrate the momentous occasion with a little bit of cake. Like, what a hero. That said, going from there into kind of like larger implication news, one of the more interesting things is apparently there is a protein compound that we found that's really good at eating cancer for the
Jordan
real
and
hard-hitting ones.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Isolating it in petri dishes, the whole thing.
Oh yeah. No, we went at it for hours on end.
Yeah.
No, so apparently scientists have found this protein. It's called ERX41 that has worked in both mice and humans as far as very aggressive tumors. It's something where it shows tumor shrinkage while very specifically leaving healthy tissue unscathed. It's something that originally they were testing specifically for breast tissue and breast cancer, but it's been proven in breast, pancreatic, brain, and ovarian tumors. So it's something that it's applying to multiple aspects across the spectrum, and they're so hopeful with it that um, this might be something that they could call as like a one pill kind of solution for trying to fix cancer, and they're looking at doing clinical trials to continue expanding their studies and findings with it. So pretty cool. Where we're finding more and more effective uses for, or not uses, but treatments for cancer. Um, Carrying on for that and things of efficiency, as it were. Um, Over in Japan, they've had a pretty successful go with deep sea turbines. This is something that's for 30 to 50 meters for imperial users, i.e., Americans. That's 100 to 160 feet as far as the depth of these instruments. But what it is it's something where you're using ocean currents in order to generate electricity. Over in Japan, they have a little bit of a harder time with solar just because there's not a lot of real estate in Japan, there's not a lot of physical space. And likewise, they have a little bit of trouble with wind because they're at a lower elevation. It's something where, like Europe, the US, there's a lot more places for uh, wider open areas where wind can brush through. Japan doesn't quite have that. With these deep sea turbines, they're hoping to use some of them for the, if I pronounce it right, Kuroshio current. It's a current that runs basically right next door to Japan. With what they've tested, they have estimates that the current could potentially provide up to 60% of Japan's electricity needs as a whole, as a country, which is already very impressive. But in terms of that energy efficiency, it's something where coal is about 80% power efficient for what you use, what you get out of it. For the currents, they're showing that at about 70%, which is insane. That's right next door to coal in terms of how much energy you're getting out of it, but it's a renewable source. Comparing that to other renewables that they have out there, it's 15 to 29% for wind, solar, and hydro pumps. So literally more than double what they've already got from renewable stuff. It seems like the deep sea turbines are going to be a real big game changer out in Japan, and hopefully it's something that we'll see progress for other places as well. Like if you had, some current that's going off of, say, the side of California or something like that. So we'll have to
Weird
see where
situation.
things like that go. But yeah, more energy. Ah ha ha ha. We continue our progress. Um, Continuing from that for efficiency things that are shown to be very effective. Apparently, Liberia had a test about 10 years ago where they looked at people that were at risk of criminal activity, and they had 1,000 people that they about 1,000 people that they did this trial with, and they split them into four groups. There are people that they had them go into therapy. They had people that they just handed them money. They had people that did both therapy and money, and then they had people that did neither as a control. After 10 years, they went and looked back at these different individuals, and it was shown that the people that did both were 50% less likely to be involved with any criminal activity. It's something where I think the number they used was almost 400 crimes were prevented. And these aren't just like small things, it's like violent
God,
crimes.
weird how that works. Like if you actually try to rehabilitate people, they get rehabilitated. It's
And not just, the I think
odd.
the really big factor with this is it's not simply a matter of just the, oh hey, here's the therapy, but the therapy and the money. Some of the people that were involved with this, one of them said that they think by having both, it gives you, the therapy is kind of like, here's your societal reset, here's something where we're trying to like help you improve or give you skills for living a better life,
Build
but
those good
providing
coping mechanisms.
Right, exactly. But by providing in this trial, it was $200 was given to the set monetary groups. By giving them a little bit of currency alongside the therapy, it gives them what one of them said is a possible like cushion time frame where it gives them a chance to go and give them a buffer to practice some of the skills that they've obtained. So rather than just like having like, all right, well, here's how you should be, go at it. It's more like, hey, here's how you should be. Here's a little bit of like, you've got your ends met for whatever amount of time,
Yeah, it's at
and
least
now
your
they can go
groceries,
and
right?
find, yeah, and now they can go and find whatever legal, regular work. So I know one of the examples they mentioned was like shoe shining as a legitimate business. It's one of those things where they're able to go and find legitimate work rather than just, all right, well, now you're done with us, get out of here. Um,
You're
so
right back in the
it's
same situation with no money.
right,
I
and
just keep
so
coping.
so given the success with Liberia, especially over that 10-year period, it's something that the US is now trying to replicate specifically in Chicago, and one of the more uh, uh, tried sections of Chicago where there's a lot of violent crime. Apparently, the program they're looking to do there is going to be a little bit more intensive with a lot more people involved, and they're going to be pairing therapy with with specifically job training as well. So it's not just a like,
Mm.
oh yeah, here you go, you're given your coping, or you're able to get feelings out that you otherwise might not be able to express in a healthy way. It's also, no, here are some legitimately tangible skills that you can put towards making a better life. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that the fact that the study showed how effective it was, at least for those those four control groups, seeing how they compared, because having just therapy or just money, therapy worked in the short term, and it's something where there's a little bit of a drop, but not nearly as drastic as the both option. And then the control, of course, to compare everything with, because that's the nature of studies. Quite impressive and quite hopeful as far as things going in the future, especially as we talk about things like, criminal prevention. There's the whole, police reforms and defund the police and stuff like that. I think studies like this are how we're going to find a better way forward. So that was a thing that Liberia did something, and the U.S. is trying it. Going for other country aspects, out in Spain, they are currently talking about having a period leave for women that are suffering from menstrual cramps and the like. It's proposed to have 3 days out of the month that they can take off from work, or up to five with additional conditions. It is something where mild symptoms aren't being considered for this. It is something where you do need to go and like get a doctor's note, but it does provide that flexibility of a quote unquote sick leave for something where this is a health related condition. Likewise, they're also looking at potentially adding a little bit more maternity leave, and then they're also looking at abolishing VAT, that's VAT tax uh, issues, not issues, but they're looking at basically reducing some of the tax involved with hygienic products, so tampons and the like, so that it is much more available for places like prisons or schools or the like. So that's something that's going on in Spain. And then the last like uplifting news, we got to touch on Ukraine. It's been a hot minute. One of the uh, kind of uplifting things, in addition to the fact that the war is starting to take a little bit of a turn for the better in favor of Ukraine, is a while ago, the U.S. vowed to take in, they took a pledge to take in up to 100,000 refugees from Ukraine. As of right now, it's something where there are 45,000 Americans that are very directly sponsoring Ukrainian refugees, in addition to some that have already come in. It was a little over 6,000 that have already come here. But we also have this 45,000 number for people that have yet to come in, that are on their way, or are looking to make that transition to resettle here in the U.S. This is something where usually when it comes to efforts for like refugee resettlement, it's something that is more of a state sponsored thing. I believe it was something like 9 different organizations within the government mainly focus on this stuff. In this case, it's something where they've had a little bit more of a hands-off approach. They're letting private citizens and organizations participate in it. And given the amount of people that have come and will be coming, it's something where just people being kind and people looking to support Ukrainian refugees that are coming over. It's something where you're funding for necessities, housing, job hunting, that kind of stuff. It's something where we're accounting just through that effort, through this current program where it's kind of a mix of private and public. That inadvertently is more than half of the pledge of what we say we would be willing to take in. So that's immense, and it's something where I believe that this would be the largest private organization for bringing in refugees in U.S. history. So kudos to everybody involved. Everybody world over seems to be very much in support of Ukraine. So keep up the good trend. We're really seeing some good humanitarian efforts made through that. But yeah, that's it for the news this week. And then we have all sorts of holidays. One of which,
Do we ever?
do we ever? We'll get to that real stinker at the end. The first holiday on the list is for D-Day. It's the anniversary for D-Day, so ironically, going back to Europe as far as war and devastation and such, it's something where D-Day was a very, very big movement in terms of trying to turn around the Nazi regime that was the World War II Germany Axis powers. So shout out for all those that served and all the efforts made there. Going to a much more lighthearted thing, because this is narratives and nonsense. We also have a couple of fun ones. There's Eyewear Day, so get your glasses on. Yo-Yo Day, so your classic. I know I have at least 2 somewhere around here. Just sitting on a shelf.
Story of every guy who sort of likes yo-yos.
And they're definitely Star Wars ones because I'm a nerd. And then it's also Drive-In Day. So if you're gonna go see a movie, maybe consider a drive-in. It's National Drive-In Day, everybody.
I'm
Hey!
sure there's a drive-in so close to all of you. You go get it.
You know. And then finally, it's also before the big ticket, it's also World Green Roof Day. The idea that you can in fact do a little bit of like gardening or ecological architecture type of things. I very much like to think of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There is a New York in one of these multiverses where there's like plants and vines and stuff growing on the side of skyscrapers. If you want to go for Star Wars, Alderaan would be another example where they don't quite have it on the rooftops, but there is a very definite combination of human civilization working alongside ecology. There's a lot of plant life on Alderaan that works side by side with it. It's very utopic. Is that the term if that exists? Sure. Of a utopia. So there you go. Green Roof Day. And now the what started as a fun bit and turned into a trigger. Applesauce Cake Day.
The cake is a god dang lie.
The cake is a lie. Okay, so applesauce cake. We were reading about this, and it was something where they said, "Oh, this is an American favorite." I'm like, I've never had applesauce cake in my life, so good start. We're like,
to our knowledge, who knows? Like maybe somebody made it.
Yeah, someone we know might know about applesauce cake. I had no idea this was even a thing.
Apple, like to me, it seems like apple spice cake, and it's like maybe somebody just made that with applesauce.
Right?
Like I could have eaten it and just never known.
And for me, it was something where like my brain went, oh, applesauce cake. So this is probably something where they like replace sugar with applesauce. Yeah. That was my take on it. That was my assumption
instead of water or something.
Yeah. I thought it might be something as simple as that. No, this is a legitimate thing where Apparently, applesauce cake has been around since early colonial days, and it especially gained popularity between the early 1900s to like 1950s during wartime because you just don't have as many ingredients or access to ingredients because things are being rationed and whatnot for the war effort. And so applesauce cake has been around for a while, and it's been in cookbooks and the like. It's something that I'm gonna have to ask my grandma and my great great grandma and just be like, have you had applesauce cake? Because I don't know, I
Is that
didn't
a
know this
thing?
existed. And then the thing describing this was saying, oh yeah, so applesauce cake. It's very simple. All you need is flour and applesauce. And I went,
Only two
oh shit.
ingredients.
All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go make it. I mean, I don't have applesauce, but my roommates have flour, so maybe I can, scoop a couple cups worth of flour off of them, and then just get some applesauce, and I'll make a treat for everybody. Well, I look up applesauce cake recipes, and you know what there is? It's not just flour and applesauce. It's like, oh yeah, baking soda, baking powder, cinnamon, and nutmeg, and vinegar, and olive oil, and all
All
this
the
other
different
stuff.
species.
And I'm just like, this is just a cake. This is just a cake. Jordan has no cooking skills. You lied to me. I thought it was flour and applesauce. What is going on here? And then I went to go to an easy version of this, and I look it up, and I'm going through the ingredients list, and it's the same thing where it's like, here's all this other stuff that you're going to need. And like, oh, by the way, like cream cheese frosting is the best, which to be fair, it is like absolutely the best. Cream cheese frosting
Sweetened cream
is
cheese.
fantastic.
On
Anyway,
like fruitcakes. Oof.
right?
Oof.
Anyway, so I go through the simplified version of applesauce cake recipe nonsense. And I scroll down and it's like, oh yeah, you need like half a cup of Greek yogurt and half a cup of applesauce. And at that point I'm like, okay, hold on. This is applesauce cake, but we have as much applesauce as we have other stuff. At this point, it's not even
It
an
could be Greek
applesauce
yogurt
cake.
cake. You could call it. It's just as much of a legitimate complaint.
I'm losing my mind.
Look,
So
here's the thing. All I'm hearing, cake is inferior. If you want a real frickin' apple dish that's American as all get out, apple pie. We'll get some frickin' apple pie. Don't worry with this cake.
So anyway, it's applesauce
It's always
cake
a
day.
lie. Pie, never a lie. Cake, always.
If you've had applesauce cake, please let us know because I'm
No,
losing my mind.
spit it out, puke it up,
doesn't-
go get a pie. Just make
to
life
me,
simple.
This doesn't exist. They said, oh, it's so simple, and then I'm like, no, this is just cake. You lied to me. Like this
Because
one
they're
had
trying
an
to
A.
make cake out like it's like, oh, but it's easier to make than pie. Ah, ha, ha,
This
but
is
it
a.
ain't.
I'm like, oh, this is like one of those. Oh, it's a wartime effort. Like lack of ingredients. This should be very simple. This will be like straight out of the like Captain America quoting like, food's a lot better now. We used to boil everything. I thought this would be like one of those simple treats where it's like, oh wow, like potato cakes on TikTok are apparently a thing. Like I thought it'd be like that. They lied to me. They lied to me. Applesauce cake exists, and it is an affront to humanity. And now we talk about Chippendale. Chippendale
Yeah, I don't
Rescue
know why
Rangers.
Jordan wanted to review a male burlesque show, but yeah, I'm not really sure what I was supposed to
No,
get out of that
no.
story.
We're talking the wood furniture maker. Was it Thomas
Oh.
Chippendale?
My mistake. Hey, I
Oh,
must
of
have missed
course.
that one.
No, we're
Huh.
talking about two animated chipmunks. Chip the Chipmunk and Dale the Chipmunk. I don't know. Do they have last names?
Chip and
I should
Dale.
ask my resident Chip and Dale expert, John, whose father apparently voiced one of the two in one of the rides for Disney World. Apparently, that is a thing that he has said a couple of times on our Kingdom. By the way, we play Kingdom Hearts, so like check that out Wednesdays about evenings. Okay, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I enjoyed this movie. I want to say that first. I did enjoy this movie.
It was good.
I had fun with it. It is a weird roller
I
coaster.
would say I enjoyed the Chip and Dale stuff in the movie. Chip and Dale
Yeah.
were on the screen. It was always pretty solid.
I have problems with this movie, but overall, I did like it. I had fun with it. It's very fun with family, especially like watching. I mean, it's a Disney movie, so family
Kind of
friendly
a-
is in the name, of course.
You can have like more generations though. It's fun.
Yeah. You can have people that
Couple different
aren't
age groups.
your age and younger. If you have kids, you can get your grandparents, whatever. people will enjoy this movie for very different reasons depending on what they like and what they've seen and so on and so forth. It is a little bit more focused on late 80s, late 90s nostalgia, right in that window. I think that's where you get the ultimate enjoyment out of this movie, is if you're like an early 90s kid, you will probably like much more of this than a late 90s kid.
Like, as in
I'm
you were a
mid.
kid in the early 90s, just so everybody's
Yes.
kosher.
Yeah, I
Or
think
you
that's a
watched
good
a
way
lot
to
of the
put it.
reruns in the 2000s.
Yeah. uh in our case, we're mid 90s. I'm 95. You're
I
just
feel like
barely
we're
out of it in
2000s kids.
96.
Like, I was like
It's
4
one of those
by
weird
the end of
things.
it. Like, I wasn't really coherent in the 90s.
Yeah. uh we still very much enjoyed large swaths of this. There's humor all over the place. It's great in a lot of aspects. It's very funny. The script is very good. um but yeah,
Dialogue,
in terms
especially.
of, yeah, dialogue's good. And as far as the filmmaking goes for this, they definitely leaned into this being more Roger Rabbit esque. They make a couple of overt references to Roger Rabbit.
As in, he's
Um,
just there.
yeah, it's a thing. Whether it worked or not, I think it works in some places and doesn't work in others. Um, I
Roger
think.
Rabbit definitely pulled it off a little better.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Roger
By that I
Rabbit.
mean a lot.
Um, while I do think that this is very much a love letter in most respects, I think Roger Rabbit from like the ground up is a work of love and effort to make something new. And I
They
feel like
did it
with,
because they could, and they're like, let's just go for it.
yeah, and they very much committed to that aspect. And like if you see some of the behind the scenes for Roger Rabbit trying to mesh, especially back then when we don't have 3D animation, they had to try to do all these nifty tools and tricks to blend real life with cartoons in the same frame. And it's something where from the ground up it feels like a work of passion, while in this, it feels like there are some shortcuts. For instance, a good chunk of the 2D animation, it does look like they have genuine 2D animation that was used in this film, but they also have 3D animation that is cel shaded to look as if it were 2D.
And it's often like right in the forefront. Like, it's not like a character
Yeah.
in the background where you can like get
No,
away with
it,
it.
it
Like,
is Chip and Dale is
yeah, like
3D animated. And they're like, "Oh yeah, Chip, you're 2D animated." And it's like, "No, he's not. You're
if you've ever seen
ah.
the new Berserk anime, you know it's that.
Yeah,
It's that.
so it's something where I will say for most of the style references, they did a good job. For instance, there is a Muppet esque character, you have a Gumby stop motion esque character. Like those work pretty well.
They're very much animated as you would think they would be.
Yeah,
Gumby's very stop motion,
I
and
would
the
say
Muppet's
it's
very,
the cel shaded 3D to make it look 2D
yeah.
was the worst part of the animation
Which sucks
aspect.
because like most of the Rescue Rangers are that, except for Dale. So it's like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah, Dale is the only 3D out of the crew. Everyone else is this weird, we're pretending to be 2D but we're not. Um yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. That said, there are references all throughout this movie to everything and everything under the sun. And in some places it feels like they could have done less referencing. In some places it feels like they could have done more referencing, but then like something gets involved. I don't know. It's very this is a roller coaster of a movie. I'd also say for the most part the voices are great. I do want a little bit more out of Chip and Dale respectively. I think their performances are fine because it's John Mulaney and Adam Sandberg.
Andy Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg. That's it.
Yeah.
Um sorry. With the two of them, it's sufficient. It gets the story beats across. I think the script for their dialogue did them a lot of favors, but it doesn't stand out nearly as much as some of like even the background characters seem a little bit more I don't want to say lively, more expressive as cartoon characters. Goodness, like uh yeah, it just feels like there could have been a little bit more from the performance, but it's not to say that their performances are bad. I think it's sufficient for what this movie is.
Well, and
Um,
there's always that catch of, were their performances restrained? Was somebody restraining it?
yeah, is it a direction? Is it a choice? Is it, yeah.
Because it does
Um,
seem weird with Andy Samberg right there that it's like, you'd kind of think you want to let that guy go off a little, or,
as Dale, who
but
is the comic relief character, but
yeah,
then
like,
but at the
but it was
same
pretty
notion,
reserved.
it's something where, um, plot spoiler, like Chip and Dale from the '90s, they have a scene together where
I'm
Dale's
sorry,
like,
if you care about the plot of Chip and Dale so much, you're gonna just stop watching my show, please. Just go away. I don't want to deal with you.
so Chip and Dale, the two of them in the '90s, like Chip's the heroic character and Dale's the screw up, the funny one, and Dale doesn't want to be the
I
funny
would
one
say the
anymore.
screwball.
Like, yeah, and it's something where it's like that
What
could have
it's
been
more
part
not
of
like
the
it's the second
character.
banana, the one that kind of gets the true
Yeah,
end of the pencil, or at least he thinks he does.
yeah, and Chip very much says, "No, we're both bananas in this larger Sunday," or something like that. Like, if that's something where they're using that as part of how they directed or informed the performance of Dale, hard to say. Um, it would make some sense of it, but then it's this weird thing where it's like, okay, you're gonna have a person that would be very great for a very extravagant character come in and play a serious character, or they take the characters very seriously in both good ways and
Well, because
ironically
like
in
the
weird
idea is it's
ways.
not Chip and Dale, the characters. It's
Yeah,
this is the these are the chipmunks that play Chip and Dale that
yeah.
happen to be named the
These
same thing.
are Chip and Dale that got to headline their own show, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. It's like I don't know, like Amanda being Amanda and then having the Amanda show. It's of that same nature where it's like, no, this
Yeah,
is their
literally.
show, their shtick, their thing, named after them. Um, yeah, yeah. So going into the plot, if you want no spoilers for this, get out of here. If you want some spoilers, here we are. We're about to hit them. We're gonna go in depth in a 3 and a 2 and a 1. Boy, the plot. So this is a very, I would say, tropey, very, but thankfully very meta plot. They went very beat for beat as some other stuff, and I think it works in their favor. It's a mystery cover caper type thing. In fact, some of the plot elements are literally ripped straight out of old Chip and Dale cartoon stuff, which is like mind-boggling that it exists in this way. It could have been something that they didn't end up giving that kind of attentive detail. So, uh, as an example, and this is something where I would say this movie does very good at foreshadowing, being very cyclical. When we were kind of talking about, okay, what did we like or dislike about the plot, one of the things that we're very happy with is it has a very good, it does a very good job of having unexpected setups and payoffs. One of the like examples of this is you have a scene where it's a little bit of like a flashback in the 90s. It's Chippendale at the height of them Chippendale-ing. They finished wrapping up with one of their episodes where the cat villain of the show gets bonked on the or they're chasing him down. They end up bonking Dale on the head. Birds fly above. The cat gets distracted. They end up nabbing him. Nice clean cut, straight out of an episode that actually exists. And then they then use that specifically for the end villain of the entirety of this movie, where they end up bashing each other on the head, and having it so that the birds come in to distract the villain so that they could then execute their plan to take down the villain. And it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, this is both a reference to itself in a movie making context, but then an actual reference to the show proper. And it's just one of those things where the the fact that they went through to like set that up and then they went, no, we're going to bake this into the plot later is impressive. And
A lot of really good setups and a lot of good payoffs with
yeah,
those,
yeah,
which
and
is not something I was really expecting.
right, and another good example is you have Probably one of the biggest memes, because it is a meme of this movie, is Ugly Sonic. Ugly Sonic is a character with a booth at a fan convention, presumably like a Comic-Con or the like, and he's set up his booth is set up across the way from Dale, and it's just Dale because Chip is like an insurance agent now.
Dale went and tried to make his own show at one point, and
Yeah,
that
double
kind
O
of split.
Dale.
And the Chip and Dale immediately got canceled without him, and Double O Dale went nowhere. So
Yep.
we're now back to Dale struggling to be a social media influencer now and try to get his reboot back, and Chip sells insurance.
Yeah, and Dale is this you know, preview for the themes later. It's something where he's kind of a like not washed up celebrity, but a celebrity that had their highlight and is just kind of coasting after, like
Kind of one hit
figuring out what to
wonders,
do next.
kind of
Yeah,
delisted.
yeah. He's like, oh yeah, I have a theatrical show, you know, later on, and he goes to
He's a
Chippendale.
he's a male dancer.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, we had the gag cartoon or the gag guest come in, and the ironic gag guest wants to hang out. Haha, what a joke, kind of thing. Like they do references like that. And anyway, off topic. Ugly Sonic, it feels like it very well could have been just this one throwaway gag, and that's the end of it. And at some point, as Ugly Sonic is talking about how like he had his moment of fame, he's there, he's doing his thing. He's like, yeah, so you know what's next for Ugly Sonic? I have a contact at the FBI. We're gonna see if we can start an Ugly Sonic like crime show thing.
All the other kind of obscure characters are like, yeah,
Sure,
right, okay,
that'll
sure,
go
sure.
somewhere. And then in the movie, that does go somewhere, and because Chip and Dale are going through this investigative mystery.
Their buddy Monterey Jack, the kind of
Yep,
heavier set mouse, gets kidnapped and
yep,
is going to be forced to
goes
be
missing.
bootlegged.
Oh no. The idea is that there's this criminal organization that will take tunes and bootleg them. They'll remix them, change their appearance, and make it so that they're forced to do shitty remakes of things that already exist. And they don't want that to happen to Monterey Jack. They're trying to investigate. They end up finding like a lead to where these bootleg movies are happening. They thought it was being shipped overseas. Turns out it's actually still here in the US. And they end up contacting their buddy at the FBI through Ugly Sonic. And so Ugly Sonic is like hanging out of a helicopter with the FBI en masse towards the end of the film. It's stuff like that where it's like, what happened? How did we get here? So it does a very good job of having unexpected setups and payoffs. Honestly, to an extent, it kind of feels a little bit like if we want to go off of like Doctor Strange stuff with Sam Raimi, where you think you know that that's the end of that bit, that section, that sort of thing, and then it comes back around somehow later down the line. It yeah, it's very well constructed in that aspect, which I do like. I do think the script, the dialogue, I think that's probably some of the best highlights of this movie is how just like in tune it is. It's very clean. Yeah, so that's a big aspect. This movie very much is a like you have your two ex detectives, they get back together to get like the final gig, except you have the overtone, the theme of this is taking place in Hollywood. It's actors that are living their own lives, as in Chip working at coercive insurance, which like
Too good.
got that well done. But you also have Hollywood actors or celebrities that are still trying to like live that limelight or reignite that same thing that they had before, especially in this era where it's like, oh yeah, the you know, you have so many like Disney live action remakes, you have reboots of classic shows like iCarly is back on
Everybody's
air.
favorite, all the live action Disney movies, they show up in this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's stuff like that where all of these things are starting to come back, and this movie highlights some of the criticisms of that kind of thinking, and it's very interesting. I will say that the character development for Chip and Dale, respectively, is really nice because it's something where you can wash away a lot of the initial trouble of this movie as that's just the way show business is. But this movie does a good job of bringing it back to the characters and saying, no, there is some like unresolved beef that the two of them had, not necessarily like explicitly, but inadvertently, where they didn't
Well,
realize how much they needed one another.
and a lot of it that was nice is initially it's a lot of this is like Dale is kind of makes poor decisions a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of interesting to see that like some of that initially did kind of come from Chip not always being the most expressive with his emotions and just
Yeah,
kind of like not actually being honest about things, which was kind of nice.
yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't just a one-sided dump.
yeah. And there's a really good one liner for how to approach risk that I think is uh a little bit ironic. We'll touch on why, but it is something that is a good message of the movie. For for all you family folks that take home what you can from the movie. So that's the idea of plot stuff. Let's get into like the themes of the movie, and then also the use of references and how did this thing come about? How is this made? What rubs weirdly or wrongly in some places? Because it is something where while I do enjoy the movie, it when I first watched it, because I ended up watching it twice before recording this podcast. My first reaction was, wow, this movie is a roller coaster. There are some parts where I am 100% on board. This is fantastic, and there are other parts where I'm just cringing hard at whatever it is I'm looking at. And it is whiplash. It goes back and forth. There is no middle ground. It is just wah 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 wah,
A
like lots
lot
of
of the
hits and misses. Yeah.
Chip and Dale stuff is very well handled. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that is like passion, well researched, but it's definitely
Yeah.
once you start getting to the background, the side characters, it starts getting a little sketchy and like the handling and like selection process, I guess. It's
Yeah.
really weird because it's like somewhere between a Chip and Dale love letter and like a 90s cartoon nostalgia love thing, but there's the new remakes of like Lion King. It gets a little messy.
Yeah, there's a lot of what feels like very cynical, we're throwing references in for references, and some of the references work and some of them feel like a dedication of love and effort put into this movie. Like, goodness, the background is full of them. Dale is just walking down the street. He passes a bus stop and there's a billboard ad for Dobby for Gucci. Or looks across the way and there's Mr. Doubtfire with
With
Meryl
Meryl
Streep,
Streep.
which is hilarious. Like, that's such
Or
a funny idea. Or
there's a bus bench that's Butthead for mayor from Beavis and
yeah,
Butthead, like just
you
all kinds of stuff.
yeah, and even for stuff that's harder to see, like some of the graffiti on the street is actually graffiti for that Miles Morales made in the Into the Spider-Verse movie.
Ooh.
Like just little things like that that are sprinkled throughout where it's like, no, there is some like legitimate love and care put in, but then some of the references are also like knockoff characters in and of themselves, which is really funny because you're dealing with a lot of like direct source characters, and the idea is that the knockoff characters are being bootlegged, created, and sent overseas, which we learn that they're just like held in a warehouse, like underground kind of thing. They're just off the
Weirdly
radar.
convenient, isn't it?
But like you get a character that like they end up going down this street where they're being very cynical. Like Dale's like, oh yeah, this is, I don't know, Main Street or something. Like this person sells people's hair for money, and this person is dealing in illicit whatever photography, blah blah blah, stuff like that. And you have like Linda, who is the mom in Phineas and Ferb, who is part of this like black market street that looks so shiny and clean. You have one of the
Sound
dogs from, I think,
different.
Lady and the Tramp that's like blowing bubbles out of a window that apparently has this dark understory. And then they get to the end of the street and
There's the cheese shop.
it's a cheese shop. It's like Bjornson's cheese shop or something, and it's a very overt nod to Swedish Chef, but it
But
isn't
it isn't literally.
Swedish Chef whom
It is just a
Disney
knockoff.
owns. It's just a knockoff of Swedish Chef. And it's like they so you have later in the same movie you have actual Peter Pan is like the person that's in charge of this underground cheese market, stinky cheese. It's drug dealing basically. You have him as part of this very illicit business, and that's one of your actual characters that does exist in Disney owned corporate America. But then they don't want to like have this very clearly parody version of like Swedish Chef. They can't do that to Swedish Chef. We're going to have Bjornson, who is a Muppet that happens to do the
And he literally does the and just walks around.
Yeah, he does the same exact thing, and then they're like, so what about Stinky Cheese? And then he turns into a villain character, and then he has
is
like
also
a full
terrifying,
American accent.
and I want to burn his non-existent
it's-
puppet body with fire.
It is pretty scary. Like it's just one of those things where it's just um it exists and it feels weird because it's like they have the capability of going the full way. They absolutely have that
It's
ability.
just strange
and
because
chose
like
not
Roger
to.
Rabbit was an original character in a universe of pre-established ones, and this is like characters as Chip and Dale that already exist, but they're in the same way, and it's just
They
kind of
exist in this world of like some people are pre-established and a lot of them are just references to pre-established things that aren't actually the established
And
thing.
they're still good at utilizing the Chip and Dale stuff. It's just I feel like there's a lot of times where I'm like, okay, I feel like this is kind of taking away from that. Like, why are we focusing on this weird Swedish chef guy and like
Yeah.
random South Park character showing up? It's like that wasn't what I was expecting. I don't think it makes it bad, but it is just kind of a tonal
It's this weird whiplash, and it's like
impasse of like, what?
it's very hit or miss because it's something where like I would say Randy Marsh shows up just in the background. He's just chilling in a sauna.
He's just there.
Yeah, he's just
Like,
there.
He's just there.
You go to like the next like spa pool area stall whatever, and it's Scrooge McDuck swimming in a bath of coins.
Big pile of gold coins.
Like it's stuff like that where like those I feel work in some ways because it's like, okay, cool, you're acknowledging that this is some like lived in world with pre-established characters that are well known and well versed and like exist in the real world. But then you have Bjornson, this off-brand Muppet that isn't actually a Muppet, working for established Peter Pan, who
also Peter Pan looks awful, and not in the way that they wanted him to look awful. His model looks really bad. Like
and this is due to the
worst looking things in the movie.
It's the 2D cell shaded. It's actually 3D, but not.
It's supposed to look 2D. It's not executed well overall, but Pete is the obvious like eyesore. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah, which is really funny
he's on the screen a lot by the end of it, so it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, and honestly, they did a better job of his monstrous remix of all these other things than they did him. Like he turns through it, they have a bootlegging machine that basically like tears cartoon pieces apart and then replaces it with other things. He ends up getting shot a whole bunch of times with it, so it's like Transformer leg, Woody leg, Wreck-It Ralph arm, Shredder shoulder pad, Mario cannon, except it doesn't shoot
Mario
bullet
gun.
bills. It's just a cannonball with a face on it.
I was trying to figure that one out. I'm like,
it's one of those things where it's like it's not actually the thing. It's just kind of like the thing. And then it's Yzma's laugh, but I think the model is actually the cat from Chip and Dale, but now it's 3D, not 2D.
No, I think that's one of the cats from like Aristocats or Cats or something.
Is it?
Yeah, because it has a bow on its head, and the guy from the show, he
doesn't have a bow.
He's just a gray cat. I don't remember what that cat's specifically from, but it isn't the same Chip and Dale one.
Yeah, it has Yzma's laugh. Yzma has the bow, but she doesn't look like that. Because at some point it does the like laugh in Cusco. Oh, by the
no
way, there
idea
is
what
a
they're going with on that one.
apparently this is another like again the background details are really nice and really well done. It's the references that are in front of you that are hit or miss. But one of the background details next to Dale's booth, you can actually see that Kronk is set up right next to him, but they didn't actually get to use Kronk, and that's just
No.
real disappointing because people love Kronk. Kronk's great.
Yet we get
Um,
Tigra,
yeah, we from and
who I mistook for Tigress from
from
the
Thundercats.
Thundercats.
No, it's Tigra, the hit Marvel
One of
superhero
6
from
female
the
furry bait looking characters from Marvel.
yeah from
Because
the
we need
90s
5.
Avengers show. Uh oh gosh. Yeah, this movie is a lot of weird, and it's something where it does feel like there's a lot of mixed messaging happening. If the themes of the movie we felt I think are pretty well made, that it's a critique on the Hollywood movie making experience while also being a little bit of a love letter. And it's
But it's
also
so weird. It's like, why? Like, I love the Chip and Dale stuff, but I feel
yeah.
like we always get away from it in this movie.
Yeah, like I
It's just
think
strange. I'm like,
and I think the reason the Chip and Dale stuff works so well is the Chip and Dale aspect is kind of a celebration of nostalgia, and I think that's the stronger, better theme of this movie that would work more to its benefit if that was more of the focus. Because again, it like the Chip and Dale stuff is great, it's fantastic, it talks it like shoot, they incorporated the actual show into the plot directly. They incorporated like things like just nostalgic merchandise into the plot, like the pog that they have a pod because they explicitly mention it's one of the most 90s things
gotta have
ever is having a
pogs.
pog. But Chip and Dale end up fighting over the like last pog, where it's the pog of all of them all together as a family unit basically. And Chip ends up finally going, you know what, here, I've been holding on to this forever, I don't care about it anymore, during like their fight thing, and then he ends up giving it to Dale, and then Dale like tries to flip the script and he's like, no, that's just what I said, no, you keep the pog. Dale keeps the pog. He ends up like sacrificing his life because he's getting shot with not Bullet Bill, but a bullet from monstrosity that was Peter
Ball
Pan. It is
Bill.
no longer, yeah, Ball Bill, sure. Uh, and Ball Bill ends up hitting Dale in the chest. Dale doesn't end up dying because he's saved by his
He
pog.
had the special metal pog.
Like,
I did think it was cool though that was a metal pog too.
yeah,
Because there's
yeah.
different kinds. There's cardboard and the metal. I was like,
So in that sense, like the celebrating nostalgia stuff works really, really well, and it's really solid in terms of like how it ends up all coming together, and using things that are nostalgic as directly in the plot as they did in this is honestly breathtaking. It's incredible that they did it that way. But then you get to like the critique of Hollywood stuff, and that's where I think a lot more of that mixed messaging kind of comes in, because it's like Dale, for instance, goes under 3D surgery, so he's a 3Dified version of himself. And he's like, oh yeah, it's so much better than the 2D.
and
Then
he's like the one that actually looks good out of the whole original
yeah,
Rescue Ranger cast.
he actually
Which
looks
they would've
good
just
because all
all
of the
been
2D
that,
ones aren't 2D; they're 3D cell shaded, and like
it's
on that
passable with them, but it's not good.
yeah, and ironically, like going off of that same thing, he is 3D. He's very clearly 3D animated. He's not quite lifeless, but he's like leaning in that direction. And then they also have 3D, like 2000s era 3D Uncanny Valley with Polar Express eyes. And then you have a Seth Rogen Viking who is just a ripoff character that is not actually
a
like
dwarf. But it's confusing to me because I'm like, I thought they were going for like the Beowulf movie, but I'm like, seems like a dwarf. But I don't remember a CG fantasy movie from that time that they're trying
no,
to
I
lampoon.
I think it's something where he's not an actual direct reference. He's just
once again
adjacent to it. not committing to the fact that you're making all of these references things, and then he
It's
works
just
directly under actual Peter Pan, and then not
just looks
Coca-Cola
awful.
Coca-Cola Bear.
No, nondescript Cola Bear.
Yeah, nondescript Cola Bear. They say like, oh yeah,
How could they not get a Coke deal for this? Seriously. Like, I don't know if they
oh,
were just like wanted to make a joke out of it or not, but
I
it was
think
just
the
funny.
reason that they wouldn't be able to is because the polar bear is very much a villain in this movie. I think that would be my
I
assumption.
don't think Coke cares that much, I'm gonna be honest. I think they're like,
Or they
money?
didn't ask. Yeah, it might be the case. I
That's
don't
the
know.
thing. Granted, with all the shortcuts they take, they probably just weren't really. Well, no, but they get paid for product. I don't fucking either way. It's just funny of all things, like they couldn't get a Coke spot.
Yeah, see,
I think
it's one of
that
those
one would
things
have been
where it's
easy.
like
Got fucking IHOP and Superman, yet we can't get Coke and the Chipmunks.
I don't know.
The Sonic movie got Olive Garden, man. Come on.
It's so weird. It's so weird. It just, yeah, it,
If I could just take all the Chip and Dale stuff and just that be the movie, it would be considerably better.
yeah, yeah,
It's just weird how they're like interacting with like Peter Pan, and I'm
and
like,
I
this
think
is not what
that
I was coming here for.
yeah, and I think that when the fact that they went Roger Rabbit esque with it could have worked better, didn't work better, and now it's something where it's like you could have
I
just
think they just
rebooted
bit
Chip
off
and Dale and had
so
fun.
yeah, and it would have just been easier because you just have a concentrated group of characters to worry about, right? And
Yeah,
got all these stories and stuff to work off. Whereas it gets all messy and weird, and
yeah, I don't
I
know.
guess they were trying to do something new with it. Like it's an admirable choice. I can say that. Like
Yeah,
from the
going
perspective, not just
ironically
shitting
going
out a
to that
reboot.
risk thing. What is it? The biggest risk of all is not taking them,
Is
or
yeah,
whatever it is to
is
not take
taking
one.
no risks whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's something where it's like, okay, cool, you live by that in this movie, but oh boy, some of the risks you didn't take that happen in this, like not having just Swedish Chef who you own, you very well could have just had Swedish Chef. Like it is in
Like there
your
really
corporate
wasn't a
power.
risk there either. Like that's the thing. It's like
Yeah,
why
it's
did you
a
just get chef?
given the premise of the movie where these are actual people that happen to play cartoon characters because they are made as toons or whatever. Like that's something where they there's enough of a separation that oh, Swedish Chef is not actually Swedish Chef. Swedish Chef is, Jorgen Bjornsson, and Jorgen Bjornsson is not a great guy. Swedish Chef, however, is a character that is a person that does like his thing or what have you. It just is so strange. Um and like similarly where they have so Bjornson's cheese shop, whatever, they're dealing in stinky cheese. Do you know how many animated mice there are? Like they could have thrown any number of animated rodents. I mean, they have Monterey Jack, who is like directly involved for like 2 seconds and then is gone. But like, I don't know, have maybe like the Great Mouse Detective in there, or like have
It
if you
also seemed like they got a lot of the
have
original
Remy,
Chip and Dale actors to come back, and they seem to
and
have
then they
like
don't
want to
use.
use them as little as possible.
Yeah,
Like Gadget is in like she maybe has like 12 lines.
yeah.
Like
She,
one of the like pillars
uh,
of the series. Like
yeah. It is very focused on Chip and Dale and not the Rescue Rangers, which I think Chip and Dale have. They're in more, but I think Rescue Rangers is what people are more nostalgic about. Like Chip and
yeah,
Dale exist in the larger Disney canon. You're not.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like
Rescue
saying,
Rangers is like their thing. Like Darkwing Duck, DW's thing is Darkwing Duck, even though he's in
yeah,
other series. But
yeah,
that's where he comes from.
yeah. Which they also at the end of this movie have a Darkwing Duck cameo reference where it's like, "Hey, everybody, ask for a reboot, please. I'm begging you," kind of thing. It, it,
Please,
uh,
please,
I don't.
please,
It's
please,
such a
please.
strange movie. It's such a strange movie, and it feels very inconsistent with the
But I
themes it's.
liked its story a
But I
lot.
like it.
I was very satisfied how
uh,
the arcs both guys went
uh,
through, both Chip and Dale.
yeah.
I will say it another like nitpicky thing, Gadget, like they made a joke where she's like, "Yeah, I guess my character from the show and the character in real life are just like the
The same
same." And it's like,
person.
am I supposed to laugh that you guys are hacks and didn't do anything with her? Like, I don't
Yeah.
really find that funny. Like, she really is just
It,
like it's like a Disney mascot of Gadget doing a Gadget impression, just sitting there and just saying the
kind
Gadget stuff. And it's like you get hints of the background here or there, but it's like, and
it's
I
so
love Chip and
weird.
Dale, they're great, but it's like it was a crew. It would have been nice to see more of everybody's lives instead of just Chip and Dale having their friend
Yeah.
fight the
And
whole time.
I think what hurts the most is it's like in some places they put a lot of effort into things like, again,
Like
going for
Dale's
the,
Garage, like that was the big one for
yeah,
me. And
yeah.
what?
Dale's garage is filled with legitimate Chip and Dale
And they
merchandise
and they
all
use
over.
Dale's garage to establish a red herring for the mystery with Ellie.
Yeah,
Because when they go in, Ellie is from Albany, New York. And Dale has a map charted out with the ratings in each different territory of like what it was. And Albany's not pricked. Chip, being the smart one, he sees that wasn't in Albany. What the heck? And Ellie's like, "Oh yeah, my grandma used to record them for me and send them to me." And
yeah.
then later, Dale asks, "What's her favorite episode?" And she's like, "Oh, I can't even name my favorite."
I love them
And they kind of
all.
take that to mean that like she's not being legit. She's like,
Oh
the
snap.
the one thing they're like, old people are horrible at technology. I will have you know, my grandparents, they know how to operate a VCR quite well.
Yeah.
That is one type of technology, because
No,
that was my thing. I'm
yeah.
like, what are you talking about? My grandparents had
It's
tons of tapes.
no, it's
It's just
very
funny.
weird. And then like
There's all this like quality in there. It's like there's just diamonds in the rough all over the place, but the rough is just odd and discombobulating and sometimes poor looking.
yeah, and it's something where like the
It's close to a really good movie. There's a
it's
really good
so
movie
close.
somewhere in
It's
here.
so close. Yeah.
And like it's still enjoyable. I probably wouldn't have gone and seen it in theaters, but if you have Disney Plus, I think it's certainly worth a watch.
Yeah.
There's some good bits. Seth Rogen is the
Watch it
weird
with
CG
family.
dwarf, and they have a really great little bit with him where a bunch of his characters come back, and it's funny, But yeah, I think there was a lot of like the writers were able to like hold on to the Chip and Dale stuff, but like everything else was just kind of producers being like, well, we're gonna put this in here for
But
brand
not not this
synergy, and
though. But not this
but
though.
not that. Yeah,
Yeah, we have the
like Jordan was telling me earlier, apparently Jar Jar was one of the original thoughts for Ugly Sonic's part. They were
yeah,
actually gonna use
where
Jar
you have
Jar in the storyboards.
this very very well established hated person.
Because one thing I will say, I don't think the Ugly Sonic thing is gonna age that well.
No, it's gonna age
I
like
think in
milk.
like 10 years,
Honestly,
people are gonna be like, what?
honestly, seeing it today, because what Ugly Sonic is 2019 or
Well, and
something.
he's not even in the
3
movie.
years ago.
Like they completely ditched that. So like
Yeah,
it's
they
literally
replaced him
just,
with
did you
Sonic.
see those ads? I will also
Yeah,
say though, it was funny when they had the cats from Cats in the Alley.
that's
That
good.
was another good reference.
Yeah,
I had to bring that up. That one was
yeah,
great. Fair enough.
and
The
again, it's
Uncanny
something,
Valley stuff.
the background things that are happening, fantastic. Cats and cats, or you have like not Darla but Darla in the 90s throwback bit, and you have like you have the house from whatever Mrs. House, like again, it's
Oh
something
yeah,
where
yeah.
all of the background, there's so much love and attention and detail. It's just when the
But
background
that's
meets the foreground, when the things that are hiding somewhere and become like center stage, somewhere in there it feels like somebody's decision making or power to
there's just
use
too
things
much. It's
just
like, why are we
breaks.
referencing like old Disney cartoons and and like modern? And you're just like, what is going? And then there's Shrek stuff, and you're just like, honestly, by the end of it, I will say, it's an hour and 30 minutes roughly.
Yeah,
The references really started to weigh on me by the end,
there's a
because
lot.
one of the antagonists is this guy, Detective Putty. He's played by J.K. Simmons, and
Yeah,
they start doing kind of a Terminator 2 thing. He slides under the door. They literally, the Terminator theme starts to play,
yeah,
and then he gets frozen
and
and
broken
knocked
like in
over like the
Terminator.
T2, like the Terminator 2000 from T2 and all
Yeah,
that. And by that point, I was just like, okay, all right, I
I
get
get
it.
it.
90s movies references. Ha ha
Oh ho
ha.
ho.
Ha, okay, can we
Yeah,
resolve the plot now? Thank you.
again,
That's
it's
kind of what
like
I like at this point.
it's the foreground references that are the most detrimental in this movie. It almost feels like, and
I
then
think there's just a little too much referential humor in this.
yeah,
At least for me personally, like I was like, okay, references are great, but you can't build a whole movie
it
around
can't
it.
be. Yeah, it can't be the humor of it
Especially when
all.
you have an established franchise like Chip and Dale, like there's got so much to pull from in that. It's like, why are you making Terminator references? Why is the
Yeah.
detective Gumby? Like what?
But not Gumby, because Gumby
But
can't be
yeah,
touched. And
even though
Disney
they,
owns Fox, who owns Gumby. So,
which
like,
we
oh,
found
not the
out, because
treasured
I was like,
character.
I'm sitting here like, oh, the rights holder for Gumby was like, no, we're not giving you Gumby, and then it's like, nope, Fox owns it.
So
So it's like,
Disney owns it. So
I don't even
it's
know,
so
why isn't
they
it Gumby? Embittered J.K.
not
Simmons Gumby would have
Gumby,
been
not
hilarious.
Swedish Chef. Again, it's this weird thing where it's like they with Roger Rabbit. I think my thesis is Roger Rabbit. They committed. They went in. They got permission. They went
And
and
they
like
were
shook hands.
consistent.
They were
I think that's the
consistently good
thing.
with it.
I think these people are committed, but their consistency is just
Yeah, and it's something where like somebody's hands from up above like said not that, like they cherry
too.
picked what they
I
wanted to
think it
have
is
and
the
not have.
classic too many cooks spoil the broth.
Yeah.
I think this is very much like, I think we got a little too many people with their hands in the pie.
And carrying on with that, because I had a rant about it, and I needed to be said. Okay, like the whole like premise of like Dale's side of things is like, oh my god, the 3D surgery was great. It completely revamped my career, just like with Baloo. And Baloo, who is from Jungle Book, also 3D animated and like is just singing bare necessities at one point in this movie. They did that for him. They have live action Lion King Pumbaa show up. They
And a
do
lot of
not
the animals.
live action CG Pumbaa show up. But then they have Lumiere, who is the 2D Lumiere, not the went through like they could have made a thing saying like, you know, the 3D surgery didn't work for everyone or something like that. And he looks terrifying because he looks terrifying in the remake of Beauty and the Beast. But instead they just went, you know what, we're just not going to acknowledge that Beauty and the Beast exists.
Yeah, or Lumiere being like, "Oh, that cheap knockoff. Like, I would never do something
Yeah.
like that." Like,
Yeah.
if he was like opposed to Dale's surgery, like, "No, you were great the way you were." That would have been fun.
That would have been
That'd been a
great.
cool little moment.
Yeah, like, oh, look, the
Also, why is
glory
Lumiere
days.
there? Everybody loves Lumiere. Who
Yeah,
the fuck does not like Lumiere? Like, why is he in the
this.
obscure, no one cares section?
Yeah,
What
Lumiere,
is?
2D Lumiere is great. 3D
Yeah.
Lumiere, maybe not as liked. Maybe it is he went under surgery and then but yeah, it's like, okay, if this world exists wherein these characters are getting 3D animated surgery to like do the thing, like why is Lumiere 2D? Because there is a 3. They don't acknowledge it. They're just like, ha ha ha,
Well,
it's Lumiere. Look
and
at that. Call it a
what is
day.
it? Beezer Buzzer, the little fly from Rescue Rangers. He
Oh, yeah.
doesn't talk at the start of the movie, but then he can talk.
Yeah, it's
So
because
that
in
was
the
like a
show all
weird.
he does is
But we
or
see them in
whatever.
the club. We see them in the club, and he's still like bee, and Gadget's all like, "Oh, Beezer."
Yeah.
And then later, it's the guy from the Allstate commercials, and you're like,
Oh wait, what?
"Why wasn't he talking like that before? Wouldn't that have been a little more? Maybe he was
Yeah.
whispering. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Who
weird.
knows with this movie? I couldn't tell you.
It's weird.
It's just,
It feels way more corporate than it should in the
but like
Hollywood
part of it,
reference-y-ish.
yeah, it's like. It is like the amalgamation that Peter Pan becomes at the end. It's like
Yeah.
just all
Yeah.
this stuff
We're just
just
throwing
like
it there.
cracked in there, and you're like, can you just make a freaking Chip and Dale movie? Why did you need this?
It's just Chip and Dale.
Well,
Watch
and
it
what
if
this
you
really
want.
is, this is a survey for what's gonna get rebooted. Because the Darkwing Duck thing,
Ugh.
I think that's gonna happen because they did specifically, and I'm hoping. I don't care what any of you say. I need DW back, but I think a lot of this is like, well, we have no idea. Let's see what else we can remake. We'll just throw
Yeah.
everything at the wall, and if it buzzes on social media,
Uh,
more remakes, more remakes, more remakes.
I don't
I
like
hate
that. I don't like that
I hate
premise.
filmmaking.
I don't
And
like
yet
that
they're weirdly
premise.
critical of that at the same time as they do
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah, there's a difference between like here's another comparison. Some people have been very non-receptive to some of the Simpsons jokes making fun of Disney and Disney properties and blah blah blah. And it makes sense. Before, when it was Fox, it's the Simpsons are making fun of Disney very directly, very overtly, but now it's Disney's like in on the joke, and it almost has the same effect of like
But they're more
you're
like,
using
ooh, we can
lingo
make
and
money
then your
with this
parents
joke.
start using lingo and then it's not cool anymore. It's
It's
that
like you
same
start.
vibe.
It's
Yeah.
like, why is Fortnite in Marvel movies? Because one of the producer's sons or daughters plays Fortnite, so he's like, we need to put that in the
And
movie.
everyone cringed
Does it
collectively.
matter? Does anybody give a crap? No, but we need to have a Fortnite spot because
Reasons.
it's popular with the kids. Superheroes aren't enough.
Yeah.
We need Fortnite
It's
for
weird.
brand synergy.
It's very weird. They put Fortnite in
All right, well,
Endgame, the crux of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
and like you had to play Fortnite. I had to download
uh,
Fortnite again. And I'll point out here, I
again.
bought Fortnite before it was a battle royale. I pre-ordered Fortnite. So no one
So it
gets
was
to
like
tell me I am
what
his
was it, survival
OG.
back then?
Yeah, it was like a zombie survival building game. So I'm about as OG as they get. So don't call me out for being just someone who hates. I was in on Fortnite. I thought it looked really great. I was really excited for it. And I actually really do like its survival mode. I'm not too into battle royals. That's just me personally, so I
Yeah.
don't play it. But there is a lot of cool things in there. But like, it's just like, oh my god, dude, that was so stupid. But anyways, at risk of ranting more, I think you guys get the
It's
point.
yeah.
It's just
End thoughts. If you've got some
we're
free
cynical
time,
millennials who just have to bitch about things, really.
at the end of the day, if you have Disney Plus, it's an entertaining watch with family.
I
Don't
think
think
they
about
also
it
have the
too
original
much.
show, though, so
They do have
maybe
the
just
original
watch
show.
that.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
also
just
true.
watch that. Throwing it out there.
It's a classic.
Because, like, I never was, like, a huge Chippendale guy, but it was better than this movie. I can say that.
Yeah,
The show itself.
yeah, the movie Chip and Dale the movie, if you have Disney Plus and you want to watch something with family, you watch it. If you have no inclination to watch it, then you're welcome to avoid it. If you have some
And
morbid curiosity, go ahead and watch it. I
you could
do think
definitely fast forward through a lot. Like, feel free to skip around. I'm personally.
I think ultimately you can watch this movie and enjoy it. Just understand there are some things that are almost guaranteed to rub weirdly or wrongly in some places. Like
It's kind of like Space
it's
Jam.
just
It's
off.
not a cinematic masterpiece, but, it's a fun
Yeah.
ride
Yeah. Yeah.
through a
The
corporate
Space Jam analogy
dystopia that
is
we live in.
where everyone's owned by everything except they won't
It's
talk
all
to each
just
other, so they're
it's
very
all just brands
exclusively
and
their own thing.
just so something can make money. And
Oh gosh. Anyway, well, saying that,
I hope y'all
Connor,
feel better after that.
right? Connor,
You
where
can
can we
find
check
me
you
at
out
Five
at?
String Connor on YouTube, nonsense narrator on Pokemon Showdown. If you're gonna come at the
Woo.
king, you better be ready to kill the king. But ain't
Oh.
this crown is a firmly fixed. Thank you.
And if you want to see more of both of us, we are here Monday evenings. Or if you want to see more of myself in particular, you can see me on Tuesdays. Connor might join in on one of those days. Hopefully, maybe we're just streaming and playing things like Pummel Party has
It'll be good now. Yeah,
been our
it'll be
thing.
good now that I have that job done, so I'm not showing up every day exhausted. I
Very fair.
totally didn't ghost Jordan. So lazy.
Totally didn't.
Didn't do it.
So Tuesdays we stream evenings. It's myself and a bunch of buddies. And then Wednesdays it's myself and my friend John, who has never experienced Kingdom Hearts. We're in Kingdom Hearts 2. We're getting towards the end of Kingdom Hearts 2 into the juicy bits. And then on Saturdays, on occasion, not this last week, but on occasion, my buddy Marcus and I will play through Knights of the Old Republic. Similar situation. Marcus has not played Knights of the Old Republic. I have, so I'm guiding him through that. And that's on his Twitch channel, Eldritch Bunch at Twitch. And then you can also see him join me on my channel, Gillidan, linked.
Like that
And
brand synergy, boys.
and that is what
Play that
we're
game too.
as of
Play that
today
too.
or yesterday for the time of you listening to this recording. We will be starting Halo Infinite. Ooh, I'm excited and interested to see how it goes because this is like the open world Halo. So very curious. I hope from what I've heard, Infinite is really good. So looking forward to it. It's honestly, Halo Infinite's reaction is why I started playing through the Halo franchise as a whole. But yeah, following that, I hope
That's our
everybody-
show, brought to you by Professor Salt.
Delicious.
22 flavors.
I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week. Stay happy, stay healthy, all that jazz.